folks. It's been a couple of months. Thank you for joining us once again for Canada Business Talks, brought to you by Canadian SME Business Magazine. Now, we curate this content and bring in the right type of guests so you can invest in the mindset and your approach to business with Canadian business leaders throughout Canada. Now, in association with our banking partner, RBC, our gold sponsors, Ricoh and UPS, there's more, our bronze and silver partners, Nerds on Site and Alexio Corporation. Our aim and ambition is to empower you so you can achieve what you believe in. Hi, everyone. My name is Shahrzad. I'm the media host and consulting editor for Canadian SME Business Magazine. Now, today actually marks our 5th episode of Canada Business Talks, and today we'll be able to feature Shahrzad Rafati, and obviously you'll hear a lot about her. That's probably why you're here, not to see my red blazer, but she, of course, is the chairperson and CEO of BBTV. Now, this up close and personal interaction, yes, I'm going to ask her personal questions today, definitely. It will offer insight in how she grew up and how she turned her idea into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Now, her mission to help creators become more successful is measured, managed, and monitors by 4 KPIs. And they feel that their quadruple bottom line business, and you're going to hear all about 4, those 4 really are the driving force behind their business. Now, we do Canada Business Talks to develop the entrepreneurial resilience that it takes in times like these, to develop an eye and an understanding of what lies ahead, and to provide practical and tactical real life strategies so you, again, can get to the other side. A little bit about myself. I've been involved actively in training, mentoring, teaching, public speaking in both the academic and corporate space. For about the last 20 years, I love being able to invest in others in a worthwhile, in a meaningful way. Wow, I got to learn how to speak this morning. I've held many senior sales leadership roles, and I've done a bunch of other things as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that today as well. What we want to do at this point is thank our sponsors specifically. Now, RBC is our exclusive banking partner, who I've already mentioned. Our gold sponsors, Ricoh, UPS, silver sponsors, Nerds on Site. Thank you all for your continued support, and we would never forget Alexio, our bronze partner. Now, Canadian SME Small Business Foundation, now we've launched a campaign. Our intent is to deliver opportunities to create exposure for small businesses. Now, they're just as eager as I am. Let's hear from one of those businesses now.
Before the pandemic, we were looking at expanding into Europe, and then everything came to a standstill.
We're talking customer disruption, we're talking canceled orders.
In March, we had a 90% drop in revenue.
Our big motto throughout the whole thing was stay positive and take action.
We couldn't get any product in, and so what we ended up doing is working out a solution with UPS, and we flew it in. I actually can say that UPS is 100% responsible for my success last year.
They were there to support us along the way, and they made it their own problem.
They take care of the little things so we can take care of the big things.
Now, with UPS support, our goal through this foundation is to not only promote small businesses, but to give them the visibility that they need to generate for their business. Now, listen, if you want to be featured in a spot like that, we do have space for you. Reach out. It's www.smefoundation.ca. Please, there's an opportunity for you. Reach out. Now, we have the pleasure today to be joined by Lori Goodfellow. She's a Vice President of Commercial Financial Services at RBC. Yeah, she's joining us all the way from Vancouver, BC, and she's going to introduce herself in a moment. But I want you guys to get the gravity of what she does. Her team actually includes relationship managers who specialize in providing support to media and entertainment clients. Now, this team, they provide a whole range of services. A career spanning more than 30 years in sales strategy, project management, human resources, and operations. She loves the outdoors, perfect perfect that she lives in BC, right? And long walks with her dog and hiking trails in beautiful British Columbia. She, of course, spends a lot of time with her husband and 3 children as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Laurie Goodfellow.
Thank you very much, Shiraz. And as I'm joining from British Columbia today, I do first want to acknowledge and thank the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam people whose unceded and traditional territory that I reside on. Many Indigenous people still occupy these lands. And so I'd like to give thanks to the First Nations people for allowing us to live and work here. And given that we're in a virtual environment, I would invite everyone to take a moment and give your personal thanks. So as Shiraz mentioned, I am Laurie Goodfellow, and I lead a team of commercial relationship account managers. And I am pleased to be here on behalf of RBC to welcome you to Business Talks, hosted by Canadian SME Magazine. And since March 2020, as we saw in the video, COVID has disrupted our economic and social and personal lives at unprecedented speed. And the uncertainty and upheaval has weighed on many Canadians, including a disproportionate number of small business owners and entrepreneurs. We know the impact on Canadian business owners, either through the direct catastrophes or the downstream supply chain issues, which don't seem to be going away at the moment. And we also know that Canadian entrepreneurs are among the most resilient and passionate, serving as the backbone of our economy through years of prosperity, including challenging times like this. And so the last year and a half has certainly been both inspiring and a testament to that statement. So we've seen countless Canadian business owners persevere and find ways to come together in the community, and joining events such as this, learning those ways to think differently. And we've seen how we've identified new opportunities in emerging markets, bold pivots to start new businesses. And so as the vaccination rollouts continue, we're really heartened to see the continued support of the Canadian small businesses, both in person and online. Cyber Monday. And as we strive for accelerated recovery, we know that we've got lots of hope for our entrepreneurs in the year ahead. And so it's for all of those reasons that RBC's continued commitment to supporting Canadian Business Talks feels much more important and purposeful today. Beyond the efforts we've invested to get back and stay on your feet, we know it's important to hear and learn about different perspectives, stories, and resources. And so we're thrilled to partner with Canadian SME and take the lead on bringing leaders and entrepreneurs together. And so we hope that the engaging conversations will deliver good insights and help you successfully navigate through post-COVID. And so today, as you mentioned, Shiraz, it's my pleasure to welcome Shahrzad Rafati, Chairperson and CEO of BBTV, to share her story and journey with us. BBTV, as you mentioned, is the leading curator monetization company, and that's quite a mouthful, with a mission to help creators become entrepreneurs and continued support. It's my pleasure to share with you and listen to her stories, and she's passionate about encouraging social change, being a champion for equality, and passionate about job creation and advancing opportunities for women and girls. In 2020, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau appointed Shahrzad as co-chair of the G2 Empower, which is a private sector alliance to support the greater recruitment and advancement of women in leadership in the private sector in each of the G20 countries. So I look forward to hearing Shahrzad's experience as a female founder in an industry primarily led not by women, and a change leader for social change and champion for equality in her business strategy and vision, along with the major business goals that she's paid attention to over the rest to provide her success. So once again, thank you. I look forward to the conversation, and I'll hand it back to you, Shiraz.
Yeah, and just before you go, Laurie, the entire country, our hearts and minds are on and with the folks in BC right now. Have you been impacted by the floods, and what is happening in the region that you're specifically in right now?
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think I benefit from living on higher ground. So I'm fortunate living just outside, but Abbotsford is only 30 minutes away, and we've all seen the pictures. I think we're all actively watching the news, and the good news, last night, the Abbotsford mayor felt that they would be able to hold back the waters, although another 100 millimeters of rain expected today. So fingers crossed, and the next 48 hours will be telling.
Thank you for sharing. And of course, across the country, I mean, we're speaking to business folks every day. Our thoughts and prayers are with you all in BC. Lori, thank you so much. There's a couple of more folks that want to be able to share and speak today before we get to Shahrzad, and we're definitely going to get to her, but we pay some bills. So let's hear from Andrew Graham. He's the Vice President of Virtual Sales for Ricoh Canada. He's also one of our gold sponsors and partners for this event. Let's hear from Andrew now.
Thank you, Shiraz, for that introduction. Happy to be here today for the second episode of Canadian SME's Business Talks series. My name is Andrew Graham, and as Vice President of Virtual Sales for Ricoh Canada, I oversee our go-to-market solutions for Canada's small and mid-sized business sector. This allows me the privilege of seeing firsthand the tremendous efforts entrepreneurs and business owners put towards growing their business, serving their customers, and supporting their employees. While this past year has undoubtedly seen some of the most significant challenges for small business, it has also been some of the most successful innovation to date, thanks to the growing adoption of technology. In fact, SMBs have reported increased productivity, better engagement with customers, and increased sales as a result of their technology investments. And as business owners move forward with a digital-first approach, Ricoh Canada is here to help. Our everyday digital workplace solutions make it easy for small and medium-sized business to automate manual tasks, manage remote teams, and keep technology secure. Beyond just what technology can do for business, Ricoh knows it takes people and their imaginative thinking to affect change. That's why we're so proud to sponsor the Canada Business Talks series. As a platform that brings together business experts, industry leaders, and other successful Canadian entrepreneurs, Canadian SME Magazine is helping today's group of business owners and entrepreneurs learn from the experience and knowledge of others so they can change their business for the better. Back to you, Shiraz.
Thank you, Andrew. And there's just one more, I promise folks, just one more. We really want to give Charlie Regan. Now he has an interesting title. He's the CEO of Nerds On Site. Through his expertise and dedication, he's grown this. You may have seen those little red beetles around with Nerds On Site badged on their vehicles. They've recently partnered with Staples to deliver IT services. Ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Regan.
Hi, welcome to the Up Close and Personal series of Canadian SME. If you're anything like me, you're always looking for ways to drive up revenues, drive down costs, drive up productivity and profitability, and save time, all while being safe and secure while we enterprise online. There's nothing that bonds us as CEOs, no matter what our title may be. We are, in fact, CEOs inside our organization. Capability, expansion, orchestrators of better than what we just had. In so much as we're looking to constantly learn, setting up a liquid learning environment, not just for ourselves, but for all we come in contact with, our clients, our suppliers, and our team members. We're very excited to have Shahrzad Rafati with us today. She is the CEO and founder of BBTV, and she's got an interesting take on one of the most powerful vehicles for us to learn. All of us have watched TV or a movie or online with YouTube or other video formats. It has a powerful impact. They say about 85% of us are visual learners. And what's most exciting about Shahrzad is she found out about the brand of Canada, USA, online by watching movies, seeing just what, not just hearing about, but seeing just what this culture, this nation, and its environment had to offer. And that's why she feels so strongly about the impact of video in our lives today, not just for cultural exchange, but also for business purposes. So I'm excited to learn, to listen and learn from her this morning. Thanks for joining us.
And folks, please visit nerdsonsite.com for more information to connect with their teams. Again, that's nerdsonsite.com. And now for why we are all here. Shahrzad Rafati. Now, she's already been introduced a couple of times. And yes, she's had the opportunity to partner with some guy named Justin who sits in Ottawa. She's done a lot of fabulous things. And instead of me going through her bio once again, we're going to unfold and unpack that through our conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, Shahrzad Rafati, thank you for being here with us today.
So much for having me. It's truly an honor. And I also wanted to thank you, Shiraz, and the Canadian SME for hosting this event. And even though it's not in person, it's great. And I wanted to thank you for, for having this conversation with me. And hopefully everyone is going to learn something and get something out of it. And really looking forward to having a fruitful discussion. I do want to also, before we get started, acknowledge that BBTV's HQ is located on the traditional and ancestral and unceded territory of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And I also want to share that for all of us at BBTV, our prayers and our thoughts are with those that are impacted by the floods.
Well, thank you so much. And folks, you're going to find out why those aren't just empty words. She backs that up in how they build their business model. But Shazad, I got to tell you, you won even before you even opened your mouth. Here's why. This is my COVID hair, right? And I decided, you know what, I'm just not going to cut it. And I was joking with a few folks, say, you know what? I'm going to have nicer hair than Shahrzad. What? And I don't. You win. Like already your hair is nicer than mine. I can't compete. I'm trying, but like, you know what? I can't get there. We're going to jump. We're going to jump right in. When you walk into a boardroom, people are seeing and they're already formulating thoughts, and you probably know what they're thinking even before. Is she too young? Is she in the right room? Does she belong? How have you navigated those moments where, wait, he, what? How have you navigated those moments where you just weren't sure what you were walking into? You knew, but they weren't ready for you.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Look, I think, at the end of the day, regardless of your background, your gender, sexual preferences, people, they can form an opinion. And I feel that at the end of the day, you always want to be, more prepared in the room to be able to speak about your space, to be able to speak about the industry, what you do, and really be. I think I always tell my team, be over prepared, and I think no one can really challenge that, because everyone wants to learn from each other. And I think that if you're going to a room and you're able to speak to what you do and your landscape better than everyone else, no one can ignore you. And it doesn't really matter which corner of the world you're from and what your background is.
So, and thank you. I don't get bothered because my entire life, Shiraz, great city in Iran, by the way. You can imagine how much my name has been butchered over the years. And how much your name has also been butchered over the years as well. And I noticed that in many different interviews, when they're saying your name, and you don't even flinch. It's like, yeah, it's all right. You're going to hear the content of my competence, and that's going to speak louder than what you think my name represents. How do you so easily dismiss those little slights or the lack of preparation from other people to just respect even basically your name? How do you do that?
I feel like, look, at the end of the day, it all comes down to like your goal and your objective in a meeting. I mean, even for example, today, they said my name like your name, and they're two different names, right? My name is Shahrzad, yours is Shiraz, they're two completely different names. But I think it's just all comes to the content, like, what you want to get out of the conversation. And I think that everyone is going to do their best. I mean, I have a difficult name, so I don't really get bothered. And I feel like everyone is putting an effort to at least do their best to introduce you and to say your name. But I appreciate people that ask you how to say your name before they say it. That always is a nice kind of thoughtful ask. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, look, we're all here to have a good conversation, a constructive conversation, to make progress, and that's all that I care about.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is you don't let the objection override your objective.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay, because we kind of live in this hypersensitive world over the last number of years where we're all walking on eggshells. Are we allowed to say that? Should we say that? Well, somebody's going to be offended. Somebody's going to be bothered. I don't even know what to say anymore. How do you walk past those moments? Because what I'm seeing and sensing is your focus is kind of tight. You're not really worried about left and right.
Yeah, I think, look, I think life is too short. You want to really focus on, the key objectives that you want to accomplish in your life. And I feel like you can't really get distracted by or sweat over small things. You want to stay focused on your objectives and surround yourself with good people, and really focus on that long-term vision that you have for your life, your legacy, your company. And certainly I think those little details, you kind of look, I grew up in Iran during the revolution, and you can imagine that opportunities were very much so limited by the situation where I was lived, and I think that teaches you a lot earlier in life to know that what you really need to focus on and what really matters in life.
Okay, so we've heard both of our or all three of them mention your story, and you do have a fantastic story. I appreciate what you said earlier about preparation. And so I think I've prepared a little bit and dug and heard some of your past interviews as well. And you have a great story. I'm not sure where you want to start, but your story is important before you start a business. So what I'd like for you to speak to is your story before that seed or the idea got planted. Can you describe life before you start a business?
Yeah, I always like to tell, other entrepreneurs, look, it doesn't matter where you're from, what your background is, your past doesn't define your future. And I had definitely more opportunities to fail than succeed, and as I said, look, I grew up in Iran during a time where during the war and, there was a lot of instability. And I think just growing up, content was very much so ration, and, inequality was an everyday reality, and particularly for me as a young woman. So, and experiencing that inequality firsthand really creates a desire and a passion to be a positive agent for change. And, it really brings me back to one of my favorite quotes from Gandhi, which is, to be the change that you actually wish to see in the world. And that's why I moved to Canada, to really have access to more an inclusive and equal opportunity. And, growing up, I always knew, from the time that I was a young teenager, that I wanted to build a global business, that, this was what really opened up the possibility of building a global business that is quadruple bottom line. Because I think at the end of the day, it all starts with you, and we all play a role. A lot of times I get asked the question, well, how do I start? I think that if you really believe in yourself and you follow your passion, you'll figure it out, and you're going to make mistakes along the way, and that is okay. So, I think that, sorry, Shiraz, I wanted to just finish with one thought. I really believe that when you kind of look at true success is how you can impact the world through your business. And that I believe that, business is the greatest platform for positive change. And this is why I'm personally so passionate about a quadruple bottom line business. And you see a lot more of that in this new generation of entrepreneurs, where from the beginning, they think about, the impact that they have, not just in terms of innovating and driving financial results, but also looking at how they impact, the world socially, environmentally, and also how they look at treating their employees and the other stakeholders.
Thank you. We are going to jump into the quadruple bottom line in a moment. So thank you for sharing your existence before you started business. Now, can you describe that window where you began to flirt with the idea? Hey, BBTV, wait, what do I even name my business? Wait, I know that there's an opportunity here. Because that's trepidation. That's a moment where a lot of people struggle. Do I jump in the water or do I stay on shore? Can you describe those days, those weeks, those moments where you're like, do I do this? Do I not do this? And what was it that finally like just pushed you in?
Look, I mean, I was still in school, and this is before me graduating from UBC, and I was studying computer science. I was passionate about mathematics and technology, 17 years ago, it was the early days where digital was leveled the playing field. I saw what happened with Steve Jobs and the invention of iPod, and I just knew that video was going to be the next thing. And given my background, being so passionate about democratization of content and being able to actually really empower all storytellers to tell their story, to really find the audiences that they're connecting with, to talk about what they're passionate about, I think to me was very important, and I wanted to play a significant role in all of it, and that's why I started BBTV. So there was really no hesitation. As a matter of fact, I started BBTV before finishing school, and then I went back a year later and took the last 4 courses to graduate. So I certainly was very much so passionate because content plays such a big role in my life. I mean, when I even moved to Canada, I learned about the culture. I learned about the language by watching, my favorite pieces of content. And so really content also played a role as being my teacher. And I learned English watching the news, and also Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Will Smith. So, I was an immigrant. He was in Philly. So it was, he was a bit of a kind of an outlier. And so I feel that, all of us, we really feel connected. Content can help us, grow, can educate us, it can entertain us. And, and given how digital leveled that playing field, it was a great opportunity to be able to democratize content and really help content creators become more successful.
Thank you. You mentioned a number of influences that shaped your life. Mentorship is something that most people are always looking for. Well, if they're astute, they're looking for it, right? Can you share some of the experiences and the folks in your life that have acted as mentors that you feel got you to where you are today? Now, just before you share your thoughts, I'll give you an example. For about 10, 15 years, my mentor was a strong female figure. And I learned everything just from character, business, morality from her. And it was just a powerful season of my life. Right now, my mentor is in his 80s. And you find that you can learn things from so many different people. What was your experience in as you continue to journey, and what you got from different people in your life, and just the importance of mentorship, period?
Yeah, of course. I really believe in, mentorship. I also like to call it the sponsorship, because when you're sponsoring someone, you really have skin in the game. But there are really a few people who have inspired me in my life, both male and female. I've always been vocal about how important it is for entrepreneurs to really surround themselves with amazing people. And, my first female inspiration was really my mom. My parents were, both entrepreneurs. My mom ran a textile business, and where I supported her actually by doing some accounting work as a young teenager. And my dad, ran a real estate business. So they're both really inspirational people, and who I massively admire. But as far as I would say outside family, Ruth Bader Ginsburg definitely is a role model for many, as she's obviously a great public, as far as a public inspiration, an incredible inspiration to me and so many other women and men. And, she's a fierce embodiment of equality, and changed so much of the way we actually look at things in North America, particularly for both men and women. And she has made the world really a better place, and we could all be so fortunate to do the same, obviously, in our lifetime. She's definitely has been an inspiration throughout my life for me, as someone that I looked up to. I would actually say that the other role model for me is Mark Benioff, who's the CEO and founder of Salesforce. I really admire Mark because I believe, when you look at his philosophy and I think he's, if not the best leader, he's definitely one of the best leaders of our lifetime. And I really admire his philosophy, which is, I believe that the greatest platform for change is business. And I completely agree with him, right? You think about, how Salesforce is one of the Fortune 500 companies, but yet is truly a quadruple bottom line business, from how, he's impacting his community, from schools to hospitals, to, specifically impacting the environment, and of course, his employees and all the stakeholders.
Thank you, Shahrzad. Folks, we are in conversation with Shahrzad Rafati. She's the founder and CEO of BBTV. Thank you for joining us today on Canada Business Talks on Canadian SME Business Magazine platform. Now, you just mentioned leadership, accountability. These are words and important traits that we all share, but they mean more to you than the average bear. This isn't just something that you're spewing out, right? This is it actually means something to you.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, we really need to, take a moment to look at where we find ourselves today. We've had the largest global pandemic in over 100 years. And, the world is coming out of a lockdown, or maybe going back to a lockdown after, the whole industries, have slowed, pivoted, and some of them actually ceased to exist. And this was closely followed by, one of the most important human rights movements we've seen in generations, which is really Black Lives Matter. So with all that has happened, in the past year and a half, there have been a realization as to the importance of leadership. And as I'm sure you've seen it, we've seen really vividly contrasting leadership styles, by different world leaders who have demonstrated dramatically different results in terms of how they've managed through the pandemic, comforting the public through loss, upheaval. And we become also painfully aware of an absence of leadership when it has occurred. And we also have seen strong and unlikely leaders emerge. So, and empathy is really one thing that the best leaders actually have in common. Leaders really absolutely need to be empathetic in really today's diverse world. We just talked about this, and I really believe that empathy is key to inclusivity. We need to really listen and do our best as leaders to understand the variety of perspectives that we represent and impact through our businesses. And great leadership really is at the heart of positive change in this world, from accountability to equality to justice. And the solutions to the world's problems still lie obviously in great leadership. And I really believe that empathy is at the core of it.
I got to tell you, it's different speaking to you live than listening to a recording. You can literally feel your passion and your intellect. These aren't things that you're saying because they sound nice. This really is you. This is what drives the individual, the person. And now you see who you are as an individual being modeled and built out in your business. You've mentioned a number of times, and folks, I know at this point, I really want quadruple bottom line. What is that? What is that? So again, personally, thank you for the integrity with which you walk. You're not just a talking head. You literally have depth to you, and it's represented in your business, your passion. Can you describe what those four underpinnings are, and why did you pick those four?
Yeah, for sure. I think, look, when we talk about quadruple bottom line means, you measure success not just based on financial results, but you're looking at social, you're looking at, people, and you're looking at, environmental KPIs. And, building a quadruple bottom line business, really, it comes down to setting goals, measuring them, and reporting on them. So you also need to make sure that you have the right processes, you have the right pipeline, incentives across the whole organization, and of course, systems in place to make those goals become actually a reality, And I think it's very important for us to have, as businesses, uses both short-term and long-term plans for our KPIs. So the same way that, if you think about, the budgeting exercise, you budget for your financial KPIs, your revenue, your top line, your gross profit, your EBITDA, you also want to budget for all the other bottom lines and apply that same attention to detail that you do with your financial goals to the other bottom line, because that's how you build a healthier and a more successful organization. And very similar to, again, your financial KPIs, we've done the same thing in building that quadruple bottom line business. It's also the willingness and the desire to be accountable to progress. And as you said, it's not about having conversations around it. It's actually setting goals, tracking them, and making sure you're making progress and getting your team to be part of that. So, and that's what we've done at BBTV. We treat all of our quadruple bottom lines KPIs the same, with the same level of accountability, and whether we're looking for our revenue results or gender pay or carbon footprint or our community hours. And I'm very proud to say that gender pay at BBTV is 0%. We have more than 40% representation of BIPOC at the board level. We have more than 40% female representation at the board across all managers, across all the employees. And I think this is something that hasn't happened, because, we ended up, we actually created the right pipeline. For example, we have a gender interviewing process in place where for every open role, we interview at least 2 female and male qualified candidates. Okay. So you're giving both genders an equal opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah, but then Shahrzad, obviously when you look at the world, it looks very different because half of the women in the world, they don't make their own income, and and this is massive because a quarter of the female workforce, they don't make their own income. So it's like, and that speaks to the opportunity, because if you close the gap in terms of giving specifically women that equal opportunity, then that would impact the global economy by 28 trillion by 2025, which is a 26% increase. So it's really a smart decision for businesses, a public and private sector, to really look at this.
So how do you feel that women then can continue to enable one another? And what do you feel needs to change from an opinion perspective, from an outlook perspective?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I do get asked a lot of, just questions around, how can women better enable each other instead of competing with each other? And, in my personal experience, I don't think that women are competing. I think that is, a problematic stereotype that we need to overcome. It's really important for me that, as it is, I'm sure to other female leaders, to really empower Canadian women to excel in a very much so male-dominated workforce, and also inspire future leaders. I especially, want young female entrepreneurs to really think that if I've done it, then they can do it too. And other women, I speak with a lot of female leaders, and we share in the same sentiments, right? In really inspiring the next generation and also helping each other. And some of that, I've experienced firsthand through my work with G20 Empower. As you mentioned, I am the co-chair of G20 Empower, which is really a private sector alliance that is intended to support the greater recruitment and advancement of women in leadership in the private sector. And again, as we talked about, we still have a long way to go, because if you look at the last 10 years, as much as we've been talking a lot more about it in the recent years, we're making very little progress as it relates to advancing women in leadership roles. In fact, if you look at the last 10 years across the G20 countries, in terms of the number of women that are occupying managerial roles, that has only increased by 3.3%. Really? And yeah, it's slow progress. So it's really essential to invest in public and private programs aimed at developing STEM skills and changing really the current narrative, the models, and the culture, and freeing them from gender stereotypes, and taking advantage of the impact and the influence that businesses can have, and in supporting women and having more women in leadership roles, which is fundamental, as we talked about, for the economic growth. And I feel that this is certainly not just a female issue; it's a human issue impacting half of the world's population.
Love it. Thank you. It's really interesting when we are the ones creating those groupings. When I see somebody, I don't think I'm looking at a male or female or black or white or Asian. I'm just simply looking at a person. And it's really interesting what you're saying earlier is like, hey, there's a stereotype that females might be pulling other females down. We need to just kind of dissolve that thought process. And then you went to the younger generation and how you invest in this next generation coming up, the up and comers, in an entrepreneurial way. Now, a really quick question and then a follow-up. Have you ever met Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
No, I haven't had a chance, obviously, to meet her in person. I've
that's the powerful thing. And I think that's powerful. It's just any young person listening right now, they're being mentored. And we have access to so many brilliant minds like yours and access to knowledge like yours without having to buy you a coffee. We'll definitely buy you a coffee, but I just want to reinforce for everybody what the concept of mentorship is, because we have that access to conversations like this. And folks, hopefully you're enjoying this time with Shahrzad right now. I know I am personally. I've already taken away so many thoughts from this conversation. But if I were to throw it back to you from a mentorship perspective and pouring into the next generation, what does that look like? How can people in a practical way grow their skills, their talents, their abilities, and their character?
Yeah, I would say, look, when I kind of look at giving, just maybe some pieces of advice to the younger generation when it comes to really the key drivers in becoming a successful entrepreneur, I always give three pieces of advice. One is to go after large pools of opportunity. Don't really solve a small problem, if you can solve a larger one, because honestly, it takes the same amount of time. It takes the same amount of effort. Solve a big problem. Don't go after large pools of opportunity.
Wow.
And the second is follow your passion. Look, I can tell you the first 5 years of BBTV, it was hard, and I had so many of my friends and relatives, and it's it's a great journey, and but you gotta have passion for it. You really won't succeed if you don't have passion for what you do. And of course, hard work and perseverance is an absolute given. I always say, we're a 17-year overnight success. I've worked probably, anywhere from, 16 to 20 hours a day for the last 17 years. And I love it, because it doesn't feel like it. So, but it does require hard work and perseverance. And this is why you need to be passionate about it. And you really need to keep your eye on the long-term vision and really stay committed to what you're ultimately trying to achieve. Because, we live in a world where there are a lot of opportunities. You can get distracted, and as good entrepreneurs, you really want to stay focused on your vision and don't get distracted. And of course, surround yourself with amazing people that will support you.
Okay, so fabulous. Solve larger problems, because it takes the exact same amount of time as to solve any problem. Thank you for that thought, and keep your eye on the long term. I'm gonna switch up this question a little bit, or this thought. Entrepreneurial life isn't for everyone. It takes real character, tenacity, and sacrifice to achieve anything in this space. Who would you recommend not to get involved in their own venture? Because it really is not for everyone. Who would you say, hey, you're probably not ready for this life if?
I would say that everyone should at least once try to be an entrepreneur. And so what? You fail. I think life is all, I tell you, our mantra at BBTV is quick failures. You're not going to be able to innovate. You're not going to be able to be a pioneer unless you're willing to fail. But I always say it's all about quick failures. You want to learn from your failures and pivot. And I think personally, if you have never tried it, you're never going to know if it is for you or if it's not for you. Right. And so what? If you fail, you fail. What's in it to lose? Life is too short for you not to actually give it a try. And I think, if you don't know, I mean, look, we're an entrepreneurial team at BBTV, my whole team, like everybody that, we work together because you tend to attract people that are similar to you in terms of their dedication and passion and love for building new things. So I feel that if you don't feel comfortable starting things on your own, try to partner with others, right? It's like reduces the risk. It allows you to have, others to talk to. Because I can tell you that as an entrepreneur, life is quite lonely at the top. It's not, it's like you take the blame for everything that goes wrong. And obviously, you succeed as a team and you need to be the, source of motivation and drive for many. And if you feel that you're not willing to take that on individually, you want to partner up with a few folks that share in that kind of passion and you're able to be on a journey with them.
Again, folks, we're in conversation with Shahrzad Rafati, CEO and founder of BBTV. Thank you again for joining Canada Business Talks. Now, you almost sound like you're just as passionate now, today, as you were a few years ago, as when you launched this many years ago. What feeds that passion, that desire, that drive towards your goals and your focus? What is it that drives you?
Yeah, I think, I love, obviously BBTV, our space. And, I think in many ways, my passion has increased from day one and every day it grows because I really believe that, true success is in how we can impact the world through our business. And that, as we talked about, business can be the biggest platform for positive change. And, and this is an incredible motivator for me. And, BBTV, we're, as you know, we're a media tech company. We're helping content creators become more successful. We're helping them to connect to their audiences. And we are home to some of the largest influencers and content creators in the world that are defining the culture of today and tomorrow. And with that, they're able to make a great impact in the world. And for us to be able to, really build a business that is empowering that creator economy is definitely something that I'm very much so passionate about. And doing that, being a quadruple bottom line business is very important to me and is something that really inspires me. And we touched on this, we have a 0% pay gap for nearly more than five years. We practice equality in all of its forms. So, we've implemented policies and programs to make sure that, we're really a very responsible business. We look at an environmental perspective, being a carbon neutral business and helping, specifically with climate change. And they're just, these are some of the aspects of, how you can actually really create a business that is a platform for change. And that also attracts, the best talent that also care about making an impact and making a positive impact.
Okay.
And I think the other aspect of it is when it comes to our industry, it is an industry that is growing at an incredible pace. So, every day there's something new. So you get challenged and, and I love that about our business. So, the way we actually define engagement is constantly evolving. You kind of think about Web 2 and how the social and video experiences have changed. And now we're going through that with Web 3 and our ability to provide additional engagement through really unique access to new formats like NFTs, social tokens. It's what's, exciting about, our landscape. So being able to help creators succeed in such a fast growing and evolving space is very inspiring.
You really do like new challenges, like last year, the process leading up to your IPO. Now, I've been involved with a few, and it is a tremendous drain on simply time and energy to get to that point where you're launched. I'm talking about pre-IPO, all the work that goes into it. And then since then, can you describe that challenge of launching your IPO and what that meant for you and why was that even necessary for you?
Yeah, I think, with the IPO, definitely was an incredible milestone for our team. And again, as you look at, the reason why we wanted to take the company public is we wanted to have control over our destiny. And I think there are not as many companies out there that I think as entrepreneurs, many times, especially Canadian entrepreneurs, we try to sell our businesses. And I had the opportunity to sell my business to RTL. And I didn't, because I feel that, we need more great examples of companies that are able to scale and achieve, being a market leader in their category in Canada and really controlling the destiny and making sure that, we make it very clear to other entrepreneurs that this is really a great opportunity for growing and scaling your business. So, and that as a team, was certainly one of our goals. But it was something that, I would say that it was definitely as part of our roadmap. We planned for it, and we always wanted that as an outcome for us. But taking a company public is not easy. I think if you look at the challenges, BBTV, we're, in a space, we're a media tech. And as I mentioned, we exist to really advance the world by helping content creators become more successful. And even though, we're, you look at the creator economy, you have 52 million content creators in the world that represent more than 100 billion in market opportunity. Being a Canadian listed company on an exchange that is, really mainly for companies in, within defensive industries, natural resources is hard because, it's very difficult to communicate and help investors, understand what you do. And really the biggest, I think, learning, not I know your question was on but the biggest learning for us has been how to really even, leading up to it, to navigate those discussions with investors and to really distill our, very progressive business model in an industry that is, a massive market that is growing to something that is more familiar to the portfolio of the investors. So, and I think this is, a big advice for me, for all entrepreneurs out there, make sure that you really, 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 really simplify your messaging, and that narrative, and even though we thought that we did it pre-IPO, still, we're having conversations with retail that they don't understand what we do. So, how can you really, you want to think about how can you give investors that aha moment where they understand the value and the scale of the business. And I think the other part of it is, you just need to be prepared that, as you go public, it's very different being a private business. You can actually really focus on your long-term goals, especially if you're a growth business, that is focused on, really building an industry, growing it, and, participate in a big way. Whereas, being a public company, there's much greater focus on profitability and perhaps even, as short-term goals and results. And you really need to understand that, as a business, the value of your business is not really equate to your market cap. When, and this could be a really a big learning because, I can tell you that at BBTV, a few years ago, we were valued privately at more than $1 billion. And now we're listed publicly at a 95% discount to our peers. And you need to know, and your team needs to understand that, again, you're in it for the actual long-term goals. And as you keep on putting out good results, the market can't really ignore you, right? Because it's like you're building a great business with strong fundamentals. So again, we've learned a lot, and pre-IPO, post-IPO, and there's much more to learn, and we're going to keep on learning. And I think that's really a key trait of being a good entrepreneur, to be able to really know that this is a journey, and you're going to keep on growing and improving everything that you do as a business.
It's clear that you're not creating a building a business. You're creating a category that didn't exist in the framework with which you've brought it to the market. How has that education process, you described it, simplifying your message. One of my favorites is Donald Miller, who has a whole program called Story Brand, or Building a Better Brand Story. And, and he shares how to simplify your message. If we can just touch on that for a quick moment, because that's important to almost everybody listening. How do I say this with this much space? How was that creative process for you when you're distilling it down to this is the core of our message?
Yeah, we have an incredible marketing team, but I would say also it's always good to have an outsider to be able to kind of, because a lot of times, you live it. And even though to you it may sound so simple, and that narrative may be so simple, and you've heard this many times, like if you can explain the business to your grandma, your mom, then it's probably, it would make sense. But I feel like it's always really good to have an outsider. And I think for us, it was also working with, an IR firm that pre-IPO that really challenged us to say, hey, is this the most simplified way of messaging things? Because they also have the experience of dealing with public company investors to understand that demographic. So you want to make sure that, you run that by a third party that is very much so outside your industry, that has a great experience of dealing with, your investors and those constituents. And again, it's not like you're going to get it done and right and it's good to go. I think it's really an evolution. You're going to try, simplifying your message and your narrative, and it may resonate, it may not resonate. So you also need to be able to test it and to see, if it really works or if it doesn't work, because you can actually have the best brains in the room and you can come up with the best narrative, and still you're going to go and test it and it may not really sit well. So I think being able to also test it with an audience and see if it really works, and to have those closer relationships that you can actually just, really have an honest discussion where they can, tell you direct feedback, I think is also really valuable.
So you're suggesting we're patient with the process of pushing out what our messaging is when we're trying to distill it down and see how it soaks in the market, see what the response is?
Yeah, I think, you go through different iterations and you need to test it and see if it works. I remember we went through this process for a couple of weeks where we would just, have multiple calls, and I would use slightly different messaging on different calls to see which one of them really resonates better. So yeah, for sure.
So what I'm also hearing is, aligns really well with what you were saying earlier about not being afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to experiment. Trial and error. You're never going to know unless you try, right? And thank you. Now, there are a couple of questions, or a number of questions that have come in from our audience. If you're okay, I'm going to pivot a little bit and give them the opportunity to ask a couple of questions. It is very similar to what we've already spoken about, but this one I'll select. Your thoughts on disruption. Now, let me just build that up a little bit. There's disruption, but then there's creation. What you do did not exist. And that's different. Now, you are going to experience disruptors because you created a category, right? And so now, being a category creator, other people will try to, over the next little while, come in and maybe replicate, maybe try to do what you do. What are you doing to not necessarily safeguard, but understand that because of what you've done, creating a category, what does that mean when you have other people that are going to, hey, we do it better than BBTV? What are your thoughts around competition?
Yeah, I would say, look, one of the greatest joys as an entrepreneur is to constantly disrupting yourself, because if you don't, then others do. So I believe in, really challenging yourself. I feel that many times entrepreneurs fall in love with the idea, the product, everything that they build, you become too defensive. And this is absolutely a recipe for disaster. You need to be open-minded. You really need to think about how you can disrupt yourself. One of the things that, I think it's probably one of my, better traits as an entrepreneur is I always also try to listen to the younger, employees and the younger generation, because, consumption and the way we actually interact with content changes so rapidly. So you really need to stay in touch with, how, Gen Z is consuming content, how, kind of the younger millennials are consuming content. And you need to be open to feedback from all stakeholders, right? So I think, being able to have everyone involved in the decision-making, where, you know, you're looking at launching new products, listening to your customers is really important. And also like understanding that as trends change, you know, you need to change, your strategy needs to change, your products need to evolve. And I think that's what we've done really well at BBTV. You know, we've done a great job at Web 2, but, you know, you see what's happening with Web 3. We're very excited about, you know, what we're looking at, you know, and how our solutions and our products are going to evolve through Web 3 in terms of how we service both the fans and also our content creators.
Wow. I'm just going to try my best. I don't think I'm going to succeed, but I'm going to try my best to recap some of the salient points that you were able to bring about to us today. Don't wait to be disrupted. Disrupt yourself. Don't settle in. Continue to push the envelope. Continue to challenge yourself. Solve larger problems. That's probably my greatest takeaway. So thank you. That's probably one of my greatest takeaways. You stress and emphasize the leadership factor and the impact that really has in our ability to not only take our business forward, but they can't go forward if we're not leading ourselves well and not living that disciplined life. And again, another thought when we first began to chat was preparation and being over prepared for the moments that you're going to meet. You're never going to be caught off guard. I asked you a couple of questions that we probably didn't chat about. Like, hey, I got this because why? I'm over prepared. So thank you for showing out and living what you are actually preaching. And then finally, your objective always should override the objection. And this way, it doesn't matter what people throw at you or how they treat you, because you're so laser focused on your objective. Last question. You mentioned that
I am so sorry, Shiraz. I would love to address one more question, but I have to run to my next meeting. But if it's okay, I'll be happy to answer one quick question, and then we can do a quick wrap.
You know what? It was going to be a long question. We're just gonna cut it right there. Here's the last question. In Vancouver, a restaurant recommendation.
Oh, Vancouver restaurant recommendation. Oh boy, what? Tavola.
Tavola. Okay.
Yes.
When you're in Toronto, restaurant recommendation.
Oh, I'm not the best person for recommending restaurants in Toronto. I don't spend as much time there. I usually grab a nice salad to go, but definitely I love good salads, and you know I love Italian restaurants. So and
awesome.
there are many options.
Shahrzad, thank you so much. We're going to continue. We know that you have to drop off. It's been such a blessing to hear your thoughts and for pouring into us. Thank you for mentoring us today and pouring into our lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for hosting this great event, and always is a great conversation. And thank you for doing what you do and shedding light on entrepreneur stories, because we want to see more entrepreneurs in our great country, Canada. And I think you play a very important role in definitely inspiring many, including myself. So thank you for all that you do.
Thanks, Shahrzad. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Folks, that was Shahrzad Rafati, founder and CEO of BBTV. We're thankful that she made the time to be with us. And listen, we have some amazing, we have an amazing opportunity coming up for who you feel is an amazing entrepreneur. We have our awards coming up next year, probably in April, the Canadian SME National Business Awards 2021. The deadline to nominate for one of the categories that you're seeing on your screen right now, and they'll be there. We've already been inundated. To fill these categories, we might have to do a first, second, and third. That's how many people have been nominated. The deadline is coming up January 25th. And again, you can see all the categories here. Please take the time to nominate someone who you feel is going that extra mile, who had the resilience to last past these tough times that we've experienced. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us. Our partner, on behalf of our partners, RBC, Ricoh, UPS Nerds On Site, and Alexio. My name is Shiraz Sadiq. We hope that your business prospers in the way that you want it to grow. This is Canada Business Talks, brought to you by Canadian SME Business Magazine.